Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're really going to get into it with a deep dive into the career of, well, a footballer. Some of you might know, others might not, Graham Rix. And trust me, this one's got it all. The highs, the lows, the unexpected turns you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, it's a story that really makes you think about what legacy even means, especially in a world like professional sports where it's all out there for everyone to see, the good and the bad, the wins, and, well, the controversies.
Exactly. And we've got a ton of stuff to go through today, articles, match reports, you name it. We're really trying to get to the heart of who Graham Rix was on and off the pitch and honestly what his story can tell us about, well, I guess about a lot of things. So are you ready?
Born ready, let's do it.
All right, then. Let's kick things off right at the beginning. Rix's journey starts right in the heart of English football, coming up through the ranks at Arsenal.
And remember, this is the 70s we're talking about here. Arsenal was a powerhouse back then. I mean, a real force to be reckoned with. So for Rix to not just make the team, but to actually become a key part of their game plan, and at such a young age, I mean, that really says something about his talent.
Yeah, it sounds like he was almost destined for greatness right from the start.
You could say that, yeah. And there's this one moment that really solidified his place in football history. You know what I'm talking about?
Hit me with it.
The 1979 FA Cup final.
All right, now you've got my attention. Everyone loves a good final match story. Set the scene for us. What was it like?
Picture it. Arsenal versus Manchester United Wembley Stadium is absolutely buzzing with energy. The tension is unreal. It's the final minutes of the match, and I'm not kidding, it could go either way.
I bet you could hear a pin drop.
And then Rix gets the ball way out wide and sends this incredible curling cross right onto the head of Alan Sunderland, and bam, goal. Arsenal wins the FA Cup.
Wow, talk about a storybook moment, right? And just for those of us who might not be as familiar with the FA Cup, how big of a deal are we talking here?
Oh, it's a massive deal. I mean, even back then, it was the biggest domestic cup competition in England. Winning it, I mean, that's a major accomplishment. And to do it with a play like that, Rix became a club legend overnight. I mean, just like that.
Yeah, I can see why a moment like that would define a career. But it didn't stop there, did it? He went on to play for England's national team, too.
He did, yeah. He earned himself 17 caps, played in 17 international matches, which is nothing to sneeze at, let me tell you. Even played in the 1982 World Cup.
Wow, the World Cup. That's huge. But you're right. It does seem like his international career maybe didn't quite reach those same heights as his time at Arsenal. Any idea why that was?
Well, think about it. England had some serious talent on that team, like really top-tier players. Just to compete at that level, let alone stand out, is incredibly difficult.
It's amazing to think about the kind of dedication and skill you need to even be in the running, let alone excel like he did at certain points. But it sounds like after his playing days were over, he wasn't quite done with football just yet.
Not even close. And this is where we really start to see a different side of Rix. This is where he becomes the coach. And you know what? He actually found a lot of success, especially working with young players, particularly with Chelsea's youth team.
Now, for someone like me, who maybe doesn't follow youth football quite as closely, what does that actually look like? What makes a good youth coach?
It's an interesting question. It really is. Because you're not just teaching skills, you're shaping futures, A good youth coach can spot potential, nurture raw talent, and instill a love for the game that lasts a lifetime. And that's what that's what he was becoming known for.
So it sounds like he was set for this whole second act, almost like like a redemption arc or something. You see that in the movies.
It certainly looked that way, yeah. But we all know life rarely follows a script, don't we?
That's one way to put it. It sounds like you're leading up to something here. What happened next? This is where things take a bit of a turn, right?
That's right. And I think it's important we address it head on. Well, in 1999, Rix was convicted of having unlawful sexual activity with a minor.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really serious.
It was, and he was sentenced to time in prison for it.
I can only imagine the impact that must have had. I mean, not just on him personally, but on his career, on his whole life, really.
Absolutely. It sent shockwaves through the entire football world. This wasn't just some small scandal, This was a serious offense, and it really made people question his character, his judgment, especially given his work, with young players. The fallout from that was significant.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It makes you think about everything we've talked about, all those incredible highs in his career, and then to have something like this happen. What was going through his mind, during that time? And what about after he was released? Did he try to come back to football at all?
He did. He did try to come back. But let me tell you, it was not easy. It was a long and difficult road back, The stigma of that conviction, it just followed him everywhere. A lot of clubs, a lot of fans, they couldn't reconcile the player they'd admired, the coach they'd seen him become with the crime that he committed.
It makes you wonder about second chances, doesn't it?
Right.
I mean, even with all his past success, getting back into the game must have been incredibly challenging. Were there any clubs willing to give him a shot?
A few were. Yeah, a few were. But even those opportunities, they were always under a microscope. I mean, there was just constant scrutiny, constant pressure. He had a brief stint as a manager for Portsmouth, but it was turbulent to say the least, and it didn't last.
Do we know why? I mean, was it directly related to his past, or are there other things going on there?
It's hard to say for certain. I mean, these situations are always so layered, but it's safe to assume that his conviction played a role.
Yeah.
You got the media attention, the pressure from fans. It all just adds up to this incredibly difficult environment, you know? And for Ricks, I mean, he's already trying to rebuild his life, rebuild his career, and you throw that kind of pressure cooker on top of it all, well, it couldn't have been easy to navigate.
No, it makes sense. And it makes you think about those second chances. Like, were there any other opportunities where it seemed like he might be able to find his footing again, find a bit more stability?
He did later on become the manager at Heart of Midlothian, that's in Scotland. But even there, controversy seemed to follow him.
Really? What happened there?
This time it wasn't so much about Ricks directly, though. It was more about the club's owner, Vladimir Romanov.
Okay, I've heard that name.
Yeah, and he had this reputation for being very hands-on, let's say.
Hands on how?
He was always interfering with team management, decision-making, you name it, just created this chaotic atmosphere, and well, it ultimately didn't work out for Rex.
It's almost like even when he was given another shot, the circumstances were just never on his side. It paints this picture of a man constantly trying to outrun his past, but it always seems to catch up.
It's a powerful way to put it, you know? It really makes you think about the lasting impact of our actions, both on and off the field.
It really does. It's a lot to process. I mean, on one hand, you have this incredibly talented individual who achieved some truly amazing things in football. But on the other hand, there's this serious offense that you can't just ignore. It really complicates how you view his whole legacy. Yeah, it really does feel like you're trying to reconcile these two totally different versions of the same guy. You got Graham Ricks, the footballer, the one who had those incredible moments on the pitch. And then you have Graham Ricks, the man, the one who made these really serious mistakes in his personal life.
Well, that's the thing about life, isn't it? No one is just one thing, good or bad. And I think Rick's story really forces us to sit with that, with the uncomfortable questions it brings up. How are we supposed to judge someone's legacy when it's so messy, when it's full of both these amazing triumphs and these undeniable controversies?
Exactly, because even though his coaching career didn't exactly pan out the way it might have, he never really left the world of football entirely, did he? I mean, what was he up to after Heart of Midlothian?
He was still involved in various roles, mostly behind the scenes, kind of out of the public eye, you know? It seems like that love for the game never went away for him, but his path, his place in it, it definitely took a very different turn.
It's hard not to wonder what was going through his mind during all that. Was he, I don't know, trying to atone for his past, or maybe just trying to hold on to something he loved?
We can only speculate, really. But one thing's for sure, I mean, based on everything we've looked at, his story doesn't exactly have a Hollywood ending. His legacy, it's complicated. You can't separate it from the brilliance of his early career, those incredible highs. But you also can't ignore the weight of his actions, the consequences. It's all intertwined.
It really is. And it leaves you with so much to think about, so many questions. Can someone ever truly outrun their past? Especially when it's had such a public impact, when it's touched so many lives. I don't know, it's tough.
And that's kind of where we come in, isn't it? As individuals, we have to decide how we're going to engage with stories like this, with people like this. Do we only focus on the mistakes? Or do we try to hold space for the whole person, Recognize the good and the bad, the complexity of it all.
That's a really good point. It's easy to jump to conclusions, to judge, especially these days with social media. But I think Rick's story really reminds us to slow down, to look deeper, consider all the layers of a life, the highs, the lows, all of it.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that legacy, for all of us, it's a complicated thing. Our actions, they have ripple effects, and the stories we leave behind, well, they're rarely simple or straightforward, that's for sure.
Well said. I think Graham Ricks' journey, from those unforgettable victories at Arsenal to the really difficult, challenges and controversies that followed, it's given us a lot to unpack today.
It really has, but that's what makes these conversations so fascinating, right? I mean, getting to delve into a story like this, peeling back the layers, uncovering the complexities beneath the surface, there's nothing quite like it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So to everyone listening, keep those thinking caps on because we've got a lot more deep dives to come. Until then.